It is my great, it is my great pleasure and privilege to be hosting this and kicking off this particular initiative at Agastya. Sahana ji, can we just give it about a minute or so? I think a lot of people are just joining in. Yeah, can we give it a minute or two and we will start? I think another 2 minutes, Sahana ji. Thank you. Thank you for your patience. Namaste Sarvebhya. Greetings from Agastya Gurukulam. My name is Yamini Dalal. I head academics at Agastya for the India Gurukulam. And we are here to host a very interesting interaction with Sahana Bhagini on Gurukulam education and its relevance in our lives today. Before I start with the session, I would just quickly like to give you a very small brief on Agastya Gurukulam. Some of you are existing parents at Agastya, and some of you may have joined us for the first time. Agastya Gurukulam started in the year 2019 with a vision to decolonize education. And our mission is to promote Sanskritam, Samskara, and to take our children back to our ancient roots. And the enlightening talk by Sahana ji will actually give you an insight on why this is really the need of the hour. If any one of you would like to know more about Agastya, you're most free to get in touch with us. Write to us at info@agastyagurukulam.org. And we will surely revert. And if you wish to interact also, you are most welcome to write into us and we will get in touch with you. We will definitely, in the process of the session today, you'll get to know a lot more about Agastya, and most importantly, a lot more about the landscape of Gurukulam education and the requirement of this kind of education for our upcoming generation, for our little children that are going to be the future of India tomorrow. So without much ado, let me introduce Sahana Bhagini. Sahana Singh Bhagini, thank you for so much for gracing us at Agastya this evening, and for being our first speaker, our first guest, as we kind of commence this series of Samvadasarani. Dear parents, as well as well-wishers who've joined us, this is going to be an ongoing initiative by Agastya, so do watch out this space for our upcoming speakers. And Sahana Bhagini is the first to have inaugurated this series, which is, I'm sure, going to make our knowledge and our quest to learn the IKS a lot better and a lot deeper, and she's going to facilitate that process. So let me introduce Sahana ji to all of you. Sahana Singh ji is an author and a commentator currently based in Ithaca, New York, in the United States. With a professional background in environmental engineering, she brings a unique perspective to her writing with her grasp of diverse subjects such as Indian history, water management, and education. Her first book, The Educational Heritage of Ancient India, How an Ecosystem of Learning Was Laid to Waste, has been appreciated for awakening Indians to the role played by India in spreading knowledge around the world. The book has garnered acclaim for its compelling narrative, awakening readers to the profound impact of India's intellectual legacy. Building on the success of her first book, Sahana ji's second work, Revisiting the Educational Heritage of India, which is published by Vitasta, offers a deeper exploration into India's distinctive ecosystem of learning. In this work, she meticulously unravels the layers of Indian knowledge centric society, connecting it with the major academic disciplines pursued today. Sahana Singh ji's work enables a deeper understanding of India's cultural and educational roots. It helps to cultivate an appreciation for the historical forces that continue to shape our contemporary world. An alumnus of Delhi Technology Institute, Sahana ji made a career shift to writing after moving to Singapore. She worked as an editor of Asian Water magazine for many years. Sahana ji has won awards for journalism, including the Developing Asia Journalism Award in 2008. A short animation video made by her on the world's water crisis won the top prize at the TU Defton Urban Water Movie Contest awarded by the Delft University of Technology, Netherlands in 2012. Her articles have been published in Reader's Digest, Washington Post, Discovery Channel Asia, Asia Water Magazine, Swarajya, India Facts, and other publications. She has moderated several panel discussions on water management at several international conferences. Sahana ji is also on the board of many non-profit organizations related to history, heritage, education, and the restoration of samskaras. She is passionate about traveling and connecting the dots across different societies, civilizations, and disciplines. So, without much ado, I warmly welcome Sahana ji to enlighten us with her extensive and expansive knowledge. Sahana ji also she did visit our Bangalore campus, and we did kind of share a lot of conversation, and we have a lot in common. So I think over to Sahana ji to take over this evening. And I think all the dear parents and participants who've joined us, I think it's time for us to get mesmerized and hopefully dwell into our rich fabric of IKS. So over to you, Sahana ji.
Thank you so much, Yamini ji. You read out the whole bio. It's a bit embarrassing. I should have told you just read the first line.
Please, not
None of
at all, not at all.
you
I
know
think
how we exaggerate
it was
things
so
when we write.
difficult for me to eliminate it. It kind of every aspect was very important.
Thank you so much, and I'm really, really privileged that I am your first speaker at this new series that you have started. It's really, really very touching that you have called me. So namaskar to everybody and Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. We can't start before we remember our gurus. So yeah, I mean, visiting Agastya Gurukulam was another very great experience for me. From the time I've started writing about India's great Guru Shishya Parampara, after that, my journey started, to visit different Gurukulas. And when I was in Bangalore, it was amazing to see how Agastya Gurukulam, because I know the person who was working very hard to start it, Archana Purushottam ji, how hard she has worked to put this all together. So it's just amazing to go and see that now there is a Houston branch, there's a branch in India as well, and then of course online people are joining from all over the world. So let me quickly, I have a presentation. I hope you don't mind my showing you slides, because I think that helps in retention. I'll just share my screen. And let's go and see this. Yes. So I have a bit of a provocative title. I am saying Gurukula education, the panacea to modern challenges. Some people might say, come on, you can't, Gurukula cannot solve every problem. But when I went and looked into the history of India's education and saw the amount of knowledge that we generated, and I saw the power of the Gurukula, I got convinced that that's what we need to bring back to our to India. Maybe not exactly in the same form as it was in the past, but we should take the best out of it and use it to educate our children today. So that's what I'm going to be talking about. Talking points would be, what was India's Gurukula system like? What is its legacy? What are the problems with modern education and, in fact, modern life itself? Then we can talk about, can we bring back the ancient Gurukula system? And this is an illustration from my book, Revisiting the Educational Heritage of India. So some basic facts. India had a very ancient tradition of formal, disciplined teaching and learning that attracted students from around the world. So it was not just people within the subcontinent that were studying in India. People were coming from far off lands. They were coming from Tibet, they were coming from China, they were coming from Middle East, Western Asia, as far as you can go, whichever part of the world was interested in education, interested in learning. They all knew about India and knew that they must send their students to study in India if they want a proper holistic education. Then the best place to go to is India, which might surprise you today, because today there's a mad rush to get out of India, to go to America, to go to Europe, to go to Australia, wherever else. You just get out and then go and get your higher education. But it was just the opposite, simply just the opposite in ancient times, 5,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, until as recent as, you could say, 200, 300 years ago as well. Uh, People were swarming to India. And the fame of the gurus was so well known, was so widespread, that people would know the names of gurus even in other countries. Okay. And they would want to secure admission in the top schools and colleges of India. And we know about Nalanda, we know about Vikramshila. But when I did my research, I found that there were almost 100 of them that I could find references for. And there must be many more that we don't know about. Now, there were also, if you go back in time when, there were no brick and mortar buildings, we had forest universities. So today, the understanding of a university is that you have this huge building with different departments, different schools. Every school has its own building and all that stuff. That's the way we understand a university today. Certificates given out, degree certificates given out, there's a pedagogy and all those things. But when you go back in time, in India's history, we had forest universities, which means in the middle of the forest with trees all around, there would be a tree under which one guru is sitting and teaching a group of students, maybe one subject, one discipline. And a little away, there's another tree with another guru and another group of students, and they are studying another subject. And in this manner, there would be many, many departments, all in the open air, and there would be a presiding guru who is looking into what all the gurus are teaching to ensure that everything is aligned. So why would this not be called a university? It's just because today we are following the colonial discourse, and we go to exactly what defines a university, and so that the Western definition of university is a university. But in India, it's just thousands and thousands of years ago, we already had a university kind of system, except that it was all in the open air, and certificates were different from what they are today. When writing became predominant, then certificates were being awarded, degree certificates. So we hear about that in Vikramshila. I think Vikramshila was the first place where degree certificates were given physically. But before that, it would be, a word of the guru, which has been, and then people would know from the way the student conducted himself and from the knowledge that he or she has, that this person has studied under this guru. And the other remarkable thing is that we had rites of passage, ceremonies, which are part of the civilization itself, that mark the educational milestones. Now, why would that be there if we didn't value education so much? So the ceremonies, the samskaras that we have, many of them are to do with education. So we have the Vidyarambha, the Upanayana, various other, and then the Samavartana. All these are connected to education, which shows the importance given to education. So India's educational legacy, when you look at it, then you will remember the names of so many gurus. That's so many gurus that I can't give all the names to you. Kanada, Sushruta, Charaka, Aryabhatta, Varahamihira, Brahmagupta, Bhaskaracharya, Panini, Patanjali, Pingala, Bharatamuni, and so many others, many other scholars who have left a profound and enduring influence on the disciplines that are actively pursued today. So if you go into any university, look at all the subjects that are being taught and try to find out the history of those disciplines. From where did they start? Who laid the foundation for those disciplines? You will find that the paths lead back to India, because for a long time ago, we started valuing education, and so we kept adding to the body of knowledge, and that's how we progressed, and we became this huge civilization. So the discoveries and innovations from India in math, sciences, medicine, language, art, music, philosophy, water management, and many more have laid the groundwork for modern knowledge. So even today, I'm discovering more disciplines that have a connection with Indian education. And nowadays, it's a good thing that there's a trend towards understanding Indian knowledge systems. So in India, there's now a trend that we should know more about what constituted our ancient knowledge, because people have realized the relevance of most of these knowledge streams for today's problems. So I'm hoping that this will be taken further by Gurukulas like Agastya. Now, just to give you an idea about the number of educational centers that we had, I'm not showing you the primary centers of education. I'm not showing you those little pathshalas where children were learning their alphabets. I'm showing you the higher center, the education, the university equivalent centers. Not all of them were sprawling universities. Some were temple universities. That is, a temple itself is a place of learning. And then, of course, in the forests, you had those ashrams, and some of them were brick and mortar, proper, buildings. So on the right, in the region of Bengal, Bihar, Odisha, Nepal, you can see so many centers of education. You can see Nalanda was there, which is very well known because a lot of foreign students came there. Vikramshila, Udantapura, Telhada. Telhada University is very close to Nalanda, another massive university which was dug out only in 2009. So imagine, even now, if we start digging, we are going to find many more centers of learning that we don't know about, because education and transmission of knowledge was so important. Mithila, you can see on the east, a very famed center and it's also very interesting that a lot of scholars used to travel a lot. So Mithila, for example, became a great center of learning under a king who traveled from Karnataka. A person, Nanyadeva, migrated from Karnataka to Bihar, and he was the first person who started that dynasty, which made Mithila a big center of learning. Okay, and similarly, I see many such movements of people from north to south, east to west, all these movements, which contributed to education. Then in the north, you can see Takshashila, which is so far the oldest university that has been dug out. It is probably 8th century BC, 9th century BC, or could be 1000 BCE. We do not know, because we are discovering that places are older than what they were made out to be. Purushapura, you can see in the north. Then there was Sharda Peeth. Sharda Peeth, because Sharda is the Devi of knowledge, and Kashmir was called Sharda Desh. And Sharda Peeth was very renowned, because not only was it a great temple with a lot of energy in it, but also the library attached to the temple. Remember, I told you the temples were centers of education too, so there would be halls where classes would be held or discourses would be held. And Sharda Peeth had a library which was very valuable to scholars. And we hear about Ramanujacharya traveling all the way from Tamil Nadu to Kashmir because he wanted to refer to the manuscripts over there. Then we hear about Gujarat, a grammar book that had to be written by Hemachandra in Gujarat. And he asked for manuscripts from Sharda Peeth because those were the most authentic. So you can see that distances did not matter for those who wanted to pursue learning. They would travel to any distance. And that's why foreign students also came to India. If you hear about the journey of the Chinese travelers who came to India, how hard it was for them, how they walked across deserts, how they swam across rivers, all those things, you will realize how much importance they were giving to getting an education in India. Then in the southern part, you can see a cluster of temple universities, Kanchipuram, Ennairam, Nagapattinam, Tiruchirappalli, so many of them. And these were massive temples where classes were being held, and because knowledge was sacred. Everything. If you're worshiping God, then you will also be worshiping knowledge. That was the understanding. There was a great deal of transfer of knowledge from India. So, if you want to understand how India's knowledge has impacted the world, you should study the routes through which Indian knowledge went to all these different countries in ancient times. So Greece and Egypt, they took India's knowledge of medicine. Charaka's oath is exactly what later became Hippocratic oath. What medical doctors today take the Hippocratic oath. About how they will treat the patients, how they will never turn away a patient. They will have the patient's welfare in mind, never harm the patient. All these things which are there in the Hippocratic oath, you will find the original version of it in Charaka's oath, in Charaka Samhita, and it's even more profound. It's even more beautiful because it's in Sanskrit. So many concepts went out from India and became the foundation on which further knowledge was built up. So look at Europe, medicine, surgery, logic, grammar, linguistics, mathematics, they all got this, they got this from India via the Arabic lands, because the Muslim world under the Abbasid dynasty got a lot of scholars from India to come and stay there with them in Baghdad, set up the Ayurvedic hospitals there, and then Charaka Samhita was translated to Arabic, Persian, and all that. And then eventually, when the Islamic world was conquered by Europe, the knowledge went to Europe. And that's how it was all translated into Latin. So Sanskrit works, which had been translated to Arabic and Persian, were then translated to Latin. So that's how a lot of knowledge went to Europe. Um, Persia, West Asia was also there. The wise sayings, even Panchatantra, all these things got incorporated into the literature of the other parts of the world. Japan. Japan benefited enormously from Indian knowledge, especially Sanskrit. And Sanskrit, if you read in my book, I have a description of how Sanskrit united Japan. When Sanskrit went to Japan, it became the unifying language. Before that, they were all very divided, but Sanskrit helped unite them. China. From China, it went to Japan, not directly from India. So China, of course, took enormously from India, because scholars from India were valued. They were given good places to stay. If they took the trouble to go to China on the invitation of the kings of Tibet and China, they would be given very good places to stay and all the facilities they need so that they can translate Sanskrit works into Tibetan or Chinese. So Zhuangzang took, I think, 600 plus manuscripts from India. And there was a kind of competition between the Chinese scholars about how many manuscripts they can take with them. Of course, they were not stealing. They would copy them. They would get them copied, or they would copy themselves and take it with them. Southeast Asia, art, architecture, Sanskrit language itself, because there are beautiful inscriptions of Sanskrit in Cambodia, in different parts of Southeast Asia. And those inscriptions are in kavya form, and they're so beautiful that people say that the most beautiful inscriptions are to be found there. They're even better than India. That's what people say, because of course we were attacked, we were destroyed, and Southeast Asia was comparatively peaceful. So a lot of work has been maintained there intact. Now, India had a remarkable ecosystem of learning. Otherwise, there's no way that knowledge would have been propagated for thousands of years, right? The whole system was such that it was facilitating knowledge generation, knowledge preservation. Scholars were taken care of. They were freed from the burden of earning a livelihood. So if anybody decided to go into learning, then the whole society would respect them for that and not put too much of burden on them. So these scholars did not have to worry about where their food would come from, or how their family will live. All those things were taken care of by the society. So there was a culture of donating to teachers. That was a culture. Everybody, if they got a bit of money, they would say, yes, I'm going to donate to this Pathshala, I'm going to donate to this scholar who is doing such good work. So it was meritorious to donate to all these educational institutions. And even when the British came to India, there are accounts of some people that the people value knowledge so much. So there is G.W. Leitner, who says that he was an educator, and he was in India. He was British, and he said that in Punjab province, I noticed, because he spent a lot of time in Punjab, so he talked about Punjab, and he said that even the poorest of people want to give something to a Pathshala. That is the culture of this place, and they all keep their manuscripts very carefully. Now there is this thing going around today that Indians don't care for documentation. They don't. But G.W. Leitner talks about how every family is preserving manuscripts handed down the generations very carefully. And he also points out that sometimes the people with bad reputation in society try to get a good name by donating huge amounts to the pathshalas, so that then people will start respecting them again. So you can see the culture. Now, the Gurukula is amazing because the whole setup where students used to go and live with the Guru was that the Guru was like a walking, talking book. Guru is a knowledge, is an embodied knowledge. And you don't really have to read books if your Guru is with you, because you can ask anything and the Guru knows the answer for that. So that is how it was. And that's why experiential learning was very important. If you stayed with the Guru, you lived with him, you washed his clothes, you got water for everybody to drink, you took cows out for grazing, you would be learning from the Guru by just being with the Guru, right? The way he behaves, the way he explains certain things. And whenever it strikes the Guru that, something strikes him or her, and they want to share it with everybody who's around. So it's best to be with the Guru at all times. That was the thinking. And the relationship between the Guru and Shishya was characterized by not just knowledge sharing, but also personal growth and spiritual development. So the Guru would be looking at all the students to see if they're advancing, not just in terms of what they know, the answers to questions, but are they also growing as individuals? Are they becoming spiritual? So the importance of being rooted in Indian knowledge systems is something I want to talk about. Why it is so important. So when we are rooted in our civilization, in the knowledge of our civilization, it helps to align our swadharma with swabhava. It makes us authentic. We become the most original, most authentic self when we connect with our civilizational knowledge. And that makes us confident, relaxed, comfortable. Once you know that you're being yourself, you're not running hard to become something else, to have a personality that is very popular and those things. You're not doing all that, but you're just becoming more and more yourself. That makes you very confident. And that has many, many other benefits which we don't realize in our mad rush to follow, the Western paradigm. So when you become rooted in your knowledge systems, you have meaningful relationships, because now you have become natural, confident, relaxed. You have meaningful relationships in the family, and not just family, but even in your professional life, with your boss, with your colleagues. It'll be meaningful. And so being rooted in your knowledge systems is also a path to realizing your full potential of what you can achieve, right? Your in career and leadership, everything, it is going to benefit you. It helps you to cope with all the disturbing things, the turbulence that is going to come to you. It's going to be thrown at you in life, because life, we all know, you might be having a lot of wealth, but that doesn't mean you're going to be the most happy person. Life is going to throw those curved balls at you, and you need to have the ability to cope with sadness, worry, fear. And we saw that in COVID. I like to give that example, that when COVID brought the world to a standstill, people were all worried about what's going to happen to their family, whether their father and mother will be attacked by this virus, and will they survive. People were just dropping dead at that time. And then there is this lockdown, we can't travel. So many people were beset by anxiety. And that's the time when I realized that whatever we studied in school and college, the engineering, the physics, chemistry, economics, whatever we studied, nothing was helping us at that time to cope. The only thing that was helping was what we learned outside school and college, outside the modern education, which is, dhyana, dharana, to be rooted in yourself, to realize that this is just a phase. So all that was helping us far more than what we learned in school. So when you're rooted in your jnana parampara, you have the ability to view the world from your own lenses, from your own indigenous lenses, and not some foreign alien lenses. That's another very, very important benefit. Now, there were four main attributes of ancient Indian education that I mean, there were many, many others, but I thought I'll just bring it down to four. One, nature centric. It was very nature centric. Today's education is not nature centric. Second, it was very interdisciplinary in a very organic way. Today, we are striving to make it interdisciplinary, but it's not really what it should be. Holistic. It was holistic, and you will come to know as I tell you more about it. It was purposeful, not arbitrary. Nothing was random. Nothing was just taught randomly. There was a purpose behind it. Now let's look at nature-centric, which is the first attribute. Nature was an important teacher, guiding countless discoveries towards higher truths through observations. So the guru would not give the same task to all the students. I mean, there would be classes where they'll be sitting and listening, but when it came to doing tasks, sometimes a guru would ask one student to take cows for grazing. And of course, it would be rotated. Tasks would be rotated. Get water from a well. And when doing these kind of tasks, they observed a lot of things like changing seasons. Students would see how animals behave, how plants behave, how they themselves are feeling. They would observe everything around them and themselves. And that itself was an education in itself, to be in the midst of nature and do all these tasks. They would look at the germination of a seed, how this seed that has been planted now over the years is growing, growing, growing. And they would be pondering on these questions as they were in the midst of nature. So elements of nature were studied in great detail and sustainability was built into disciplines. So no student would have to be taught environmental sciences, environmental engineering, because they are there. They are part of nature. And they are going to see what will happen if you build an industry here, which is going to spew pollutants. Oh, what will happen to the fish? Oh, what will happen to the animals? This will come naturally to the student because they're always there in the midst of nature. And then they would know about soil health, rainwater harvesting, water catchments, astronomy. They would know because they would be looking at the skies all the time to know what time of the day it is. And they had all those tools of astronomy, which they were taught in a systematic way as well, that they would know by just looking at the sky, looking at the position of the planets and the stars, what time of the day it is, or what time of the year it is, zoology and botany. So all these disciplines later became big mammoths. But in India, right from the elementary stage itself, these disciplines were in the minds of the students. And we have this example, this story from the Chandogya Upanishad, where, the guru, sage Uddalaka, and the father himself is the guru here, Shwetaketu is his son, and he has been asked to examine a seed to see what is inside the seed. And he's saying, I do not see anything inside the seed. And then the guru is explaining to him, but the tree exists inside the seed. It's unmanifest, that's why you don't see it. And it manifests only when it is pushed by the subtle energy that you cannot see. It's the same subtle energy that is in all living beings. So you see how a child is being gently coerced, gently pushed, not coerced, gently pushed into understanding the big truths, right? Without some big preaching. It's telling him about unmanifest, manifest, and those kind of things. So all the little things that they observe were being connected to the profound things. Then attribute number 2, interdisciplinary. So I picked up this part where this is from Charaka Samhita, and I'm sure many of you can read it in the original itself. And it says that a physician who has learned one science only cannot be sure of his own science, which is Ayurveda in this case. And for this reason, the physician has to be versed in many sciences. So this is the first call, maybe the very first ever call in history to go and study beyond your own subject area. Don't just be an expert in one area. Try to understand what's going on in other disciplines, because when you do that, you will understand your own discipline better. That's what Charaka is saying. Holistic, attribute number 3, holistic in the sense that there were no artificial barriers between different disciplines like art, maths, religion. Today, we are all broken up into compartments. We study art separately. Those who study art may not be studying math. Of course, the new national education policy in India is now encouraging all these subjects to mingle into each other. But this was removed. Earlier, when the British were ruling over India, everything was separated. It was not interdisciplinary. Now in America, I'm finding that it's really being done very well. Interdisciplinarity has been brought in very, very well. And now India is trying to learn from America. But the sad thing is that Bharat herself was doing this. Bharat is the one who taught what interdisciplinarity is, right? So, we could look at the sun as a divine entity. We could worship the sun as a divine being. We have Aditya Hrudayam, so many other stotras praising the sun for all the sun's qualities, right? Viewing it like a deity. But we could also look at the math part of it and calculate the sun's distance from from the earth. We could calculate how far is the sun from the earth. And at that time, we would take a totally mathematical approach, physics approach, and do it. Then art, we would compose beautiful poetry to codify scientific insights. That's why you would, in Leelavati, for instance, when you studied Bhaskaracharya's Leelavati, you would have seen that. He was one of the world's greatest mathematicians who infused math with poetry and charm. Usually, math is a dry subject. It's just like people are scared of math. But our ancient Indian mathematicians would make it so enticing that everybody would want to study math because they would see the beauty of poetry in it. They would see the beauty of numbers in it. They would see divinity in it. And that's how we became the world, the trend setters on so many things that we study in math today. Attribute number 4, purposeful, not arbitrary. So, and just one simple example, which you all would know, but I just thought I'll go with it again. How we studied language, how we approach language. So in Sanskrit, it's not like English, where we have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, just a random collection of letters in the alphabet, which has no connection. No letter has a connection with the next one. So it's just there and we have to memorize it. But look at how it was in Sanskrit. And this shows to you the approach of the gurus of ancient. This is the exact approach they had for everything. So look, ka, kha, ga, gha, nga is the kanthya, right? It comes from the kantha. And so it is arranged together. That's why ka and kha. Kha is maha, it has the maha prana. So you have kha coming after ka. Look at the logic there. Then you have cha, cha, ja, ja, nya, which is the talavya, which comes from a little bit higher up with the sound where it comes from. According to where the sound comes from, the letters of the alphabet have been arranged. Ta, tha, da, dha, na. Then you have ta, tha, da, dha, na, where you see it's coming from the teeth. You're using the teeth to say ta, tha, da, dha, na. Then you are using the lips to say pa, pa, ba, bha, ma. So look at the intelligence behind this, arranging this alphabet, the letters of the alphabet like this. Today, we just take it for granted, but we don't realize how magnificent this is. And I hope most of you have contrasted this with the way the English alphabet or any European alphabet is taught. So there was no fight between the sacred and the rational. So I'm continuing the holistic theme. So there was no fight. It was not like religion has to be separated from mathematics, religion must be separated from science, because they all went together. They're all a part of us, ourselves. So, we move together. We move all of these together. Geometry was used to build accurate altars for yagyas. And so the people who are doing the yagyas, they are the ones who are going to be very well versed with geometry, and the ones who do yantras, sacred diagrams, right? So imagine, this is just the opposite of what it was in Europe, where it wasn't that the religious people are the most well versed with different subjects, with the intricacies of these subjects. It wasn't that way. Religion had to be separated, right? So now in India, astronomy and trigonometry were used to calculate auspicious timings for rituals. So our astronomy and was advancing because of these religious people, so-called religious people, because they want to know the time, the most auspicious time when the planets are not transiting each other. We want that kind of a timing, and so they would be learning more and more about astronomy and trigonometry and other disciplines in order to perform the ritual properly, right? So there was no fight between religion and science. In contrast to India, where science faced fewer obstacles, Europe had to deal with religious opposition to scientific thought. It was only during the Age of Enlightenment that the Western world achieved freedom from religious dominance. You know the story of Galileo, who was put under house arrest because he said the earth goes around the sun. Memory training is a very important aspect of Gurukula education, of ancient education, because memory was very important. Everybody needed to have a splendid memory if you had to get into higher education. Now, today it has been proven that there is a superior learning curve when memory is enhanced. There is a famous study which you see in the last bullet point, the Sanskrit effect. It's a recent research, I think 2016 or 2017, which points towards how cognitive improvement happens when you do Sanskrit chanting. Okay. The Vedic scholars who were chanting various suktas, their brains were studied, and it was found that over a period of time, the cognitive part of their brain, the part of the brain which does cognition, is enlarging. So their cognition is improving, right? And they have proof of this because we have Chinese scholars like Yi Jing, who has written about the extraordinary memory and intellectual capacity of Brahmins. And there are many, many other records. There was a British traveler or some other foreign traveler who said that not just the Brahmins, but even the regular people have fantastic memory in India. The dhobi who takes clothes from so many houses never mixes up the clothes and always brings back the correct set of clothes to the families. And he was wondering, how do they do this? How do they remember whose clothes are whose? And so many things. The pharmacist who, if you go and buy medicines, he knows the whole shop is full of medicines, but he knows exactly where the medicine is kept and he brings it in a second or two. That's what another British guy observed. Now, the Vedas were chanted in 11 distinct ways. And that's because this aided in remembering every syllable, every word. And even if, later when the Vedas were written down, even if they were destroyed, the memory, the knowledge persists in the brains of the people who learned it, because this is the way they learned it. They learned Samhita Patha, they learned Pada Patha. So example, if A, B, C, D, all of these are different words in the Veda, then Samhita Patha would be just saying each of those words. Then Pada Patha would be pauses after each of the words. Then Krama Patha would be A, B, B, C, C, D, Jata Patha. So they had all these, and the Ghana Patha at the end was the most difficult Patha, in the combination A, B, B, A, A, B, C, C, B, A, like that. By the time they came to that, they just knew the Vedas inside out. Okay. And this is very important because the Veda encodes all the knowledge from which other knowledge can come out, right? It's the building blocks of knowledge, and that's why the Veda had to be memorized so perfectly. Now we might wonder that we were all so great. Then what happened? Why is India like this today? We must remember the dark ages that set upon India when our universities were destroyed. This is an illustration from Hutchinson's Story of the Nations, which shows Muhammad Bakhtiar Khilji, after he killed all the scholars at a university. So people are arguing whether it was Nalanda University, whether it was Vikramshila University, but actually he destroyed all the universities over there in Bihar, Orissa, Bengal, and so on. And many other invaders came after him with the same purpose, to destroy the educational centers, because the Brahmanas are the ones who are keeping knowledge alive. Okay. And you can see in this picture how the bodies are lying around. This is from this book, the scholars who have been killed. And then Khilji is trying to look at some manuscripts because the libraries burned for several months. The libraries were set on fire. Nalanda had one of the most spectacular universities. Today, we marvel at the lovely universities in America, right? Johns Hopkins University, Harvard, all these universities will just marvel at their libraries, Boston Library. But, we had similar libraries. And so when it was set on fire, it took months to destroy all of them. That was the intention of these invaders. And he's now opening a manuscript which has come out from there, and he's trying to understand what is this. And he's thinking it's all rubbish. After that came British imperialism, which was another very dark period, in the sense that Indians lost their self-belief. They started looking down on themselves under the British Raj. So in this cartoon, which was made in the 19th century, it shows how the British are like the octopus with its tentacles spread all over the world, trying to capture land everywhere. Remember, it's not just India that they conquered. They conquered a big chunk of the world, and all the Europeans, of course, divided the world among themselves. And in the process, what happened is that our educational systems were destroyed, our schools were defunded, and the society which used to give money to the scholars, to the educational institutes, they all, since they were all taxed to the point of 50%, 70%, 80%, they had nothing left to even feed themselves. So how could they fund the educational institutes that they were doing earlier? So the British imperialism was a period when our schools, our primary schools, which were still functioning in a decadent way, they were not the same in the same glory as they were. They got destroyed. So the universities had already been destroyed during the Islamic rule. And of course, the scholars had fled in different directions. Those who survived the Islamic onslaught had carried their manuscripts to Tibet, they carried it to southern India. And that's why in southern India, you find preservation of many manuscripts, and even the temples are preserved because the invaders spent lesser time over there. And that's how we can get back that knowledge that we are trying to get now. But it was the higher centers of learning that were attacked by the invaders, whereas the British, they destroyed even the primary centers, because these little schools, pathshalas, gurukulas, which were being funded by the local people, they could not be funded anymore because taxes had gone up so high. The British wanted to extract the last drop of blood from the Indians so that they could make England rich, they could make Britain rich, and they could be the masters of the world. Now let's come to modern times. Now we have been independent. India has been independent from 75 years or so now. And we are only now beginning to understand what the ruination, the damnation that has taken place in India, and the modern education that we have got, which is just a copy of what it is in the West, how it is damaging us. So let's look at the modern challenges. We have anxiety problems, there is sexual abuse, there is clinical depression, which is increasing. Every part of the world is now seeing a higher case of clinical depression. People are just feeling sad, and day after day, they're not able to come out of it for no reason. Then there is alcoholism. We are seeing a lot of addiction, which is increasing. Substance abuse, every kind of abuse, not just drug abuse, every kind of abuse. Insomnia. A lot of people are not able to sleep. It's a big, big problem today in the modern world. Domestic violence. I mean, it is kept under curtains, but study after study is showing that domestic violence is on the rise. In Europe, for instance, in France, almost in every family there is domestic violence. America as well, and Indian families as well. Indians who are coming from India to live in America, we are hearing about a lot of domestic violence there. Apart from the regular domestic violence, I mean, date rapes is, fathers, I mean, it's just horrible. If you go deeper into what's happening in society, it's horrible. Every kind of abuse is taking place. So this is simply crushing all of the people, and they are like, everybody seems to be damaged. That's what it is in the modern world. And social media has added another layer of destruction by the addiction that it is causing. There's a growing evidence that social media is causing harm to young people's mental health. It's massive. It's just massive. People are the students, we are grown-ups. We can still observe ourselves and understand what's happening. But for younger people who have, even before they hit puberty, they got introduced to social media, the damage is far more. So people are seeing idealized versions of other people's lives on Facebook, on Instagram, on various other platforms, which is and they're comparing themselves with those idealized lives, and that is leading to diminishing self-esteem and leading to feelings of inadequacy, depression. There's something called FOMO that the younger people use this term, fear of missing out. Everybody is in a state of anxiety that I'm missing out something. I've not done this. I've not done that. Okay. Then sleep is being disrupted, because of the looking at the phone right till the time you go to sleep, So there is this blue light exposure, which simply doesn't allow you to sleep for hours and hours. Okay. That's happening. Then there is reduced attention span and productivity. A lot of teachers are seeing this all over the world, that students are not able to focus anymore, right? They're just, for not more than a minute or two are they able to focus. Then they start fidgeting. They can't sit in one place. A lot of people have observed this, and it's happening to us too. A lot of us people who are not mindful. And then isolation and loneliness caused by superficial relationships. Because if you're on the phone, in social media all the time, the friends you have are not going to be deep friends for you. They're not going to be there for you when you need them. So there's loneliness. And there's also a feeling that you don't want to step out of the house to make new friends. That is happening too. So this is all that has happened with modern education and the whole modernity, the way it is progressing. And that is where, in my book, I have a whole chapter on brahmacharya, which was an essential aspect of Hindu education, and that is simply not there. Even when you're bringing the new education policy in India, whatever you might do, but brahmacharya is being ignored. Now, brahmacharya, our the varnashrama, where our life was divided into four parts. The brahmacharya was the first 25 years of your life, where you went to a gurukula, where you went to pathshala, where you went to universities like Nalanda or Kanchipuram temple universities, and that is where you built a rock solid brahmacharya, a life of strict discipline and control on every aspect of life, which is not just controlling some desire. It was everything: food, sleep, even your thoughts could be controlled. You could say that, I want to shut off this thought, and you could do it because your mind had that kind of power, right? And brahmacharya was a time when, material enjoyment was kept under check because it was kept within the limits of dharma. You're not supposed to be just having a very luxurious life. You should be able to live without any luxury, just with the bare necessities. That was being taught during brahmacharya. And the material enjoyment was postponed to grihastha. That is when people married, when they had a house, they could eat the choicest of food, they could wear beautiful clothes, of course within the limits of dharma. But brahmacharya was not the time for enjoying yourself to the hilt. It was the time to learn, 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 and to make yourself so strong mentally that nothing could disturb you. That was the brahmacharya period. Ashtanga yoga was taught, the yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi, of course, being the last stage. That was to be acquired over a period of time. But these things were hardwired. What needed to be hardwired was discipline in brahmacharya and ability to control the mind. And the gurus of that time went beyond lecturing to students. They would not just say, oh, be good, do this, control your desire, control your mind. This was not just empty rhetoric. They taught specific techniques to control the mind, which included breathing, adopting the right postures, physical exercises, meditation, creating mind pictures, and steering the mind towards higher consciousness. So even what is the image you should be having in mind? Even that was explained so that students would slowly learn those techniques. It was not preaching, because preaching never taught anybody anything, right? So brahmacharya is an essential aspect of Hindu education, and I have been advocating for it at various places when I meet officers, when I meet government servants, when I meet policymakers. And it's also because, we know this famous statement of Albert Einstein. He said, you cannot solve problems with the same thinking used to create the problems, right? So all the problems that we have today, global warming, climate change, garbage, or with the generation, mental issues, mental health problems, they didn't come from the Indic way of thinking. They didn't come from the Sanatana Dharma way of thinking, okay? Being rooted in Indian knowledge, I say it makes you a force for good in the whole world, not just for India, not just for your community. It's for the whole world, because it makes you, when you're having the Bharatiya Drishti, which is acquired from an Indian education, understanding the Shastra, what's in the Shastras, all the aphorisms, the wise sayings, and learning Sanskrit itself, it makes you see beyond the body, your own body. It makes you see beyond your country, beyond boundaries, and understanding all the systems that are connected. You get the big picture approach. So solutions to modern problems like mental health, breakdown of families, global warming, climate change, garbage mountains, pollution of rivers and seas will come from connecting to Indian knowledge. I always assert that Sanatana Dharma is needed to bring back balance to a disturbed world. Now, we should also know the dangers of Western universalism. You got a glimpse of it already about all the mental health issues and things like that. But there's something far more insidious. There are other things that are going wrong because of looking at the world with the Western lenses. It is leading to a dismantling of indigenous understanding. So it is not just in India, but it's also in America, where the indigenous people used to live. Their understanding of the world is getting dismantled, which was very holistic. The natives of America and natives all over the world had a different kind of understanding of the world, which got broken down by the Western way of looking at things. So there has been an imposing of Western accounts of history, philosophy, and identity itself. Now the identity is the Western identity. Okay, the original identity is being uprooted and the Western identity is being imposed for everybody who goes through the modern education system. And there is this appropriation of intellectual and cultural property. The property of the indigenous people, cultural and intellectual, is now suddenly the property of the Western intellectuals. And there's also this Western reductionist approach. One big difference between the Indian and the indigenous approach versus the Western approach is the reductionist approach. So, there is the binary. Everything is in a binary of sacred, secular, good, bad, political left, political right. Now, everybody is being put into this bucket of, oh, leftist or right wing, something like that. Monotheistic, polytheistic. This is typical Western universalism where everything is seen in buckets, okay, in silos. So that's a big dangerous, very dangerous to have that kind of a mindset. Now, to give you an example of how that has damaged, the concept of going for yatras. From ancient times, we had this, people would go on yatras. They would go to these temples located on mountains, and there would be a little bit of a difficult journey, but it will also be enjoyable because travelers, the pilgrims would be traveling together. They would be sharing their things. They would be looking at the scenery. They would be having all those exciting, entertaining episodes as well. With all that, then, and also Shraddha, so it will not just be, oh, blind devotion. There is devotion, there is everything, and then they go to these Tirtha sthanas, and they get the darshan of the Devata, and then they come back, they get the vibrations of that place, and they come back home. That's the way it used to be, and it used to take several months sometimes, versus what it became when we were colonized. We have now this concept of hill stations, holidays, where we go and stay in a resort. Now that whole place is changed. It's no longer that place with pristine beauty. Now there are buildings, there are hotels, commercial centers, shopping complexes, Mall Road. Mall Road in every hill station is a sign of British colonialism. So you're going to buy things. You may not even visit the temple. You will not even find out who is the Grama Devta there, who is the Devi of this place when it was all forest. You won't even pay respect to the Devi Devatas of that region. You'll just go, enjoy yourself, play some table tennis there, play some golf there and come back. This is one of the big examples of how a modern education system just took us away from our culture and identity, from our deep instincts. Okay. Loss of sacred ecology. India used to be covered with thousands of sacred groves, which protected millions of species. Now, look at how today we learn about biodiversity. Oh, we must protect all these different species. And this is being taught as a discipline, as a subject that, how you must protect biodiversity. Go into the jungle now and try to protect. But look at how we were. We were covered with all these groves, and indigenous people were rooted in Grama Devtas and forest deities. So the Grama Devta had to be respected, the forest Devta had to be respected. So, trees will be cut only with her permission, only if it is essential. The plants would be taken, the herbs would be taken from the plants, but only after taking permission, praying to the deity that I'm using this as a medicine. So that whole culture was uprooted. The onslaught of proselytization by the missionary religions also led to uprooting of all these sacred forests. We have actual studies on this, how in Meghalaya, people, when they changed their religion, when they stopped being Hindus and stopped worshipping their Grama Devtas, they said that we don't need to, we have, God is not in these forests, so we can cut down these forests. This is not God. There's only one God, and this is the name of that God is so and so. So we don't need to protect the forest. So this whole understanding that divinity is in everything, nature is sacred, the tree is sacred, the soil is sacred, the water is sacred. When that was removed, then that's it. That was the beginning of the end. Now, we also lost a lot of terminology because of deracination, being disconnected from not knowing what our knowledge is. We lost a lot of terminology. So now the West is giving us terminology. So one example that I like to give is One Water. When I was a part of the water sector, I used to write about water management, water issues in the world. A person came and, there was a big fanfare in one of the conferences I went to. And this one water approach was introduced that, oh, the same water that humans drink is also being drunk by animals. It's also consumed by plants, and environment also needs water. So it's one water. We should always think that water is integrated. And I was wondering what is new about this, because this is exactly how we Hindus used to think. that everything is one. This water is for everybody. Animals need this water. So we can't just take all this water and make it, use it for our purposes. We have to ensure there's enough water left in the rivers so that other organisms can also enjoy it. Then one health approach, you will see that is there in healthcare. They'll talk about how human health is connected to animal health, is connected to environmental health. Well, guess what? That is exactly the approach we had. Systems approach was the Purushartha, the Purusha approach. Everything is a Purusha. We would look at, the family is a Purusha, because it's like different parts of the hands, the legs, different members of the family are like the hands, like the legs, like the head. Similarly, society itself is seen in like an organism, interconnected organism, right? So that was our approach. We lost that, and now we are being taught one water, one health, and all these things, systems approach. So we lost this terminology instead of being the people who gave this terminology to the world. Some more examples: non-sleep deep rest, NSDR, is considered as a very good way to counter insomnia. So our great Google CEO, Sundar Pichai, told in somewhere that, he was benefited by non-sleep deep rest. Now, this is nothing but Yoga Nidra. So Yoga Nidra is taught as a way of, of being contemplating and relaxing, at the same time forming your sankalpa, which is a big counter to all the stresses of life, right? Then alternate nostril breathing is a new term that has been given by the West. A lot of people are saying alternate nostril breathing instead of pranayama, from where it was appropriated. Then there is a laughable thing called super brain yoga, which, when I went and found what it is nothing but, when naughty children were punished in school, they used to hold their ears like this, both opposite ears, and go up and down several times. That was the punishment given to naughty, hyperactive children. Now that is being called super brain yoga, because studies have found that it leads to calming down of the brain, and hyperactive people become calmer and are able to focus. So super brain yoga is what is the Uthak Baitak, or I think Toppu Karanam as it was called in Tamil Nadu. We were doing it as a normal course of life. So we lost terminology. So another thing is that being rooted in our Jnana Parampara is necessary to avoid being erased, because you'll be erased, you'll be nobody 20 for 30 years from now. You will just be one person in the Western educated crowd with no identity of your own. You just be like everybody else, right? So I think being rooted is necessary, because if you hold on to the Indian knowledge traditions, then you will not be erased. You will not be appropriated, and false narratives will not be created, because you know what it is, what the original knowledge is. So there is very little acknowledgement of India's contribution to science, math, and medicine, because we ourselves don't know that we were the people who started this, introduced a certain concept, like say organic farming. We don't know that we began these concepts, right? So now Greeks are considered fathers of medicine, science, logic. Everything. If you could go and find out who is the father of medicine, who is the father of science, who is the father of math, you will find that it's somebody else. It's not, people are not talking about India. Whereas if you do an honest research, with some knowledge of Sanskrit, you will find the original place from where it's coming. So yoga, Ayurveda, sorry for the spelling mistake, dhyana, pranayama, they have all been dissociated from Sanatana Dharma. They've been secularized and made to seem as some independent body of knowledge, which is for everybody and has nothing to do with India, right? And that is very, very sad. We should not dissociate it from the mother. And that's also because if you dissociate it from the source, then that knowledge is incomplete. A lot of things will be missing in it. And we are seeing that in yoga, Ayurveda. Ayurvedic medicines are simply being popped like a pill, and that's not changing anything. That's not helping the people at all. Versus, being connected to the original Jnana Parampara and knowing the lifestyle change that has to happen along with taking Ayurvedic medicines. Or yoga itself is not just doing some asanas. It is connected to a whole knowledge system that has to be understood, right? So being rooted is necessary to avoid being erased and misrepresented. There is a growing industry today that seeks to demonize Hinduism, yoga, Brahmins, caste, patriarchy. Ceremonies like Vivaha are being maligned. Then there is malicious content being created to confuse the youth and disturb the youth so that they go away from tradition, which is a continuation of what the British did as a matter of policy. So I'm making a call for using our dharmic frameworks. And I say, and that's why I say that Gurukula education is going to help us to bring back those dharmic frameworks that we have lost. We don't even know what they mean. So many people don't know. If you ask them what is Purushartha, they don't know. And but it's a Purushartha, it's a very, very, very important understanding, concept that you should all know. And that's the way you should look at life, in terms of Purushartha. Karma theory, we know somewhat what karma theory is, about karma, that whatever you do, it's going to come back to you. The consequence of everything is going to come back to you. So there's no karma that will go, which will go unrewarded or unpunished, right? Triguna approach is another approach that is part of dharmic frameworks. How look, sattvika, rajasika, tamasika, all these frameworks are important. So you apply the Triguna approach while solving a problem if you're rooted in your knowledge systems. Varnashrama, where you will understand the which ashrama of life you should be in. If you're already 75 years old, 80 years old, you should not be interfering in what the young people are doing, because now you should be in your vanaprastha stage. So you're just in an advisory role. So these things we do not understand today. We are doing all this stress because we don't know our own dharmic frameworks. Panchakosha approach. I've only given a few of these frameworks. There are so many others. Pancha Mahayagya, right? This is a very important approach. So these frameworks, if you are embedded in our culture, in our civilization, these frameworks will be very natural to us, and we'll just be using them in our day-to-day life, in our language, and we will be giving terminology to the world. Could learning Sanskrit show us the way? That's another question, whether we can reconnect to our knowledge systems, which we have lost over the years, by learning Sanskrit. And I think yes is the answer. All the mind-boggling innovations of India came when Sanskrit was the language used by scholars. Zero, decimal system. Today we think that, oh, decimal system is so normal. We don't realize what a path-breaking approach it was to organize numbers in that way, that even the largest of numbers can be represented by using the decimal system, right? We use it every day, so we think we take it casually, but it's just a mind-boggling concept, which came from India. Algebra, calculus, understanding what health means. Like today, there is a discourse on wellness. Wellness is not about just medicine taking. Wellness is about how you should be taking preemptive measures to be in good health. Now, all this was knowledge that came from India. Astronomy, agriculture, engineering, all this was coming when India was rooted in Sanskrit. Cognitive development, I already told you about James Hartzell's study, the Sanskrit effect. You can Google and know more about it. How Sanskrit chanting helps in cognitive development, how your cognition improves and the ability to think and reason improves. Sanskrit knowledge is also the gateway to understand what is in the texts and manuscripts, right? There are so many millions of manuscripts even today that are not translated to English and other languages. They are in Sanskrit, and people don't know what to make of them. When I went to Russia, I found a lot of manuscripts that they had, and they were asking the scholars whether they could tell what is in those manuscripts. They're preserving it, but they don't know what is in it. So this is one important outcome that will come if we learn Sanskrit and understand deeply how to decode manuscripts. It will help us to reconnect with heritage and development of concepts which are relevant to the modern world. And many of you would have realized that learning Sanskrit is helpful in learning other languages. It's also helpful to know programming in computers because it's such a structured language with distinct rules, rules within rules, meta rules, which makes you understand programming itself, right? Then, of course, as I told you before, knowing Sanskrit and knowing what's in the Itihasa, what's in the various Shastras will help in reducing stress. It'll help in character development. It'll help in developing a healthy body and mind, ability to understand the impermanence of life. Once you get rooted in your Sanskrit text, you will understand what to focus on. You will know that this life is not permanent. All these possessions that we have, all those pleasures that we are getting, they're not permanent. And you start focusing on what is really meaningful and what is permanent. Then it'll get you to detach from petty matters, enmities, and all those small thinking, and you will go towards higher thinking. So Sanskrit learning already gives all these benefits. In fact, one question that I often ponder on is, that could the disconnect from Sanskrit knowledge be preventing us from discovering the next miracle drug or mathematical concept or some subtle understanding of the working of the universe? So is it because we don't know Sanskrit that we are not able to think in certain ways? We are all being now told to think in a certain way, which has been set by the Western world and which has now become quite universal. But could we go back to our original way of thinking by studying Sanskrit so that we could make all those innovations that we did in the past, similar innovations which are needed for today's modern problems? Now, in my journey, after writing my book, I've been visiting so many Gurukulas, and I've not seen even scratched the surface. There are still many Gurukulas, I'm surprised, which have somehow survived because people donated, and I'm so grateful that they are there. And new ones are also coming. Many people, as they are becoming aware, are building new Gurukulas. And Agastya Gurukulam itself is one such example. So this was Vishnu Gupta Vishwa Vidyapitha that I visited in Gokarna, where you can see the teacher who is teaching astronomy to all these students. And I could see that even without diagrams, just by the sheer way in which he was teaching, people were understanding everything. Of course, there are blackboards and whiteboards inside the buildings, but they're also being taught in the oral way of understanding. This is Vidyaranya Gurukulam that I visited in Telangana, and my eyes popped out when I saw them all playing chess over there. I was thinking they will only be chanting the Vedas, but they are learning all these things as well. So Gurukulas are changing. They are not exactly as they were before. They're incorporating various other disciplines as well, but rooted in the dharmic framework. Vidya Kshetra Gurukula, where these students are all learning, I think, how to build a house. House construction is being taught to them. It's an actual subject which is taught to the students. They all know how to build in the organic way using organic materials. They build their own classrooms. And of course, Agastya Gurukulam that I visited recently, this was a math class going on outdoors. I also saw the online classes that were going on, and which is also a wonderful way of adjusting to the modern times. Using this method of Zoom in order to communicate. I see nothing wrong in it as long as we have the checks and balances. So with this, I come to the end of my talk. I hope I made a case for Gurukula education. This is the book that I've written, Revisiting the Educational Heritage. It's available on Amazon. And you can also reach out to me by email. My email address is there, and I'm on Twitter and Facebook. Not so much on Instagram, but yes, I have an account there. So with this, I come to the end of my presentation. I think I took extra time. Sorry for that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sahana Bhagini, for taking us through this lovely presentation. And to be very honest, it actually resonated so well with me. Being on the corporate side of education for 22 years, extensively teaching the Cambridge curriculum. And when I started my journey with Agastya, it was like reliving education from a very different lens, something which I kind of had not experienced all these years. And I started my journey at Agastya as a parent, so I was like any one of these parents who joined us today on the webinar, and kind of wanting to really align myself and help promoting this cause, and this is where I am today. So thank you so much, Sahana Bhagini, and I'm sure our parents and participants are equally enlightened. Anybody who'd like to kind of pose a question, either you can raise your hand or put it down in the chat box, and either we'll unmute you or okay, I think Atulji says, brilliant session. The education has to be one with nature, totally humble, and that's what today's idea. It's like the takeaway from today's session for him. Of being sustainable, it's the need of the hour, and it needs to stay united and invoke the spirit of knowledge. His question is IKS going to include Praktik and Pali scripts for shaping our personality? As we say, Indian knowledge systems, then we have other ancient knowledges too. So ancient languages too, sorry. So this is his first question. Should I take it question by Sahana ji, or should I just
I think we'll go one by one. I don't
All
have
right.
the memory power that the ancient Indians had, nor have I learned Sanskrit in that detail. So I'm a lesser being. Yes, I think Prakrit and are also being pursued. When I went to India last time, I saw that there are lots of courses available, but I'm not sure if Gurukulas have included. But in the Indian knowledge system, the IKS, which has become now part of, education in India, lot of universities have IKS now, an IKS module that they have to study, university students. And I saw that more and more subjects are being added, and Pali and Prakrit also, I think, will come because I'm seeing advocates and there are courses being taught in some places, but they need to become more widespread. Yes, I would totally advocate for Prakrit and Pali to be also known. Prakrit, of course, there are many, many types of Prakrit, right? Prakrit eventually became all these regional languages that we speak. But Pali, yes, Pali should be studied along with Sanskrit too, because that would open up many more doors for us to understand. And yes, it will shape our personalities. Your second question, what was it?
It says it's amazing to have our behavior being close to Dharma. We have acknowledged our Dharma values practically. How does the Gurukula system solve the issue of the dilemma which is there between our Shastras of the Trahi Varna having the authority of learning and Shudras having no or less authority to learn? Uh, so the recent Gurukula concept going to follow this or become more liberal, keeping aside the dharmic principles, focus on staying united to preserve and promote IKEA.
So one thing we must understand is that in ancient India, it's
Yes.
not like everybody was going to learn the Veda. So we have this thing that, this rights-based attitude towards learning wasn't there. And it was understood that society in general needs to be well versed with skills. So different skills were being, the major education system actually was to learn, was involving skills. So you had to know, if you're in construction, then, family where everybody knows how to build, then you would all be experts in that, right? So, and in another family, it's a carpentry based, carpentry jati, then they would all be experts in carpentry. So it was all these different knowledge streams were being preserved via the jatis. It was not like a society in conflict where somebody wants to learn the Veda, he's being prevented, and this and that. It wasn't like that. There was harmony, and the responsibility of some Brahmanas, which were born in those families where they were preserving the Vedas, they were getting into Veda learning. Whereas the others were not even interested. So, it's like, it was like that. So we do have cases where if there is a Shudra who is very, very interested in learning the Veda, then, we have examples of them, if he was genuine, like his personality is such that he can be given the Veda knowledge. Because remember, Adhikara was there. The concept of Adhikara was that the Guru will give the knowledge to a person with Adhikara because that person has the right attitude of, not being egoistic, for example, not wanting to become the master of the world. Like Veda will give you powers to do a lot of things, but how are you going to use that power? All these things were being considered while teaching. So it's not like even all Brahmanas were also learning the Veda. No, there were the egoistic people who were not suitable. They were not being taught. They were not being allowed to get into the top gurukulas, top ashramas where the Veda is being taught by a certain guru. They were filtered out. So this filtering system was there because it was a meritocracy. Now, this doesn't mean that the Shudras were being, leading a horrible life. In fact, Shudras were ruling in many places. They were extremely wealthy in many places because they were controlling these trades, because most of these trades were being carried out by Shudras. And the Shudras will take the help of Vaishyas when it comes to accounting. They want good, proper accounting, money to be handled well. Similarly, Kshatriyas are doing taking care of the security of the society. But again, these were not watertight. We must remember in ancient times, it was not cast in stone that this jati is going to be a Shudra jati, is always a Shudra jati. No, there was extreme mobility that, if we haven't understood that. There was no one class of Brahmins that was dominating the whole of India. No, because they were just like 5% or less than that of society. And a certain jati, which is a Brahmana jati here in one part of India, was somewhere else not Brahmana. It was actually Kshatriya or some other. So we are learning all these things now. We weren't taught all this by the British. We are learning that how nothing, it wasn't like one strict demarcation of the jatis. Okay. So that's how it was, that the Shudras were happily pursuing their professions. They were making a lot of money. They were the ones who made India the richest country in the world at one time when we had 25% or more of the world's GDP, right? That's because they were earning, or they were allowed to keep the money. Brahmanas were not, a good Brahmana was one who wasn't keeping a lot of wealth with himself. So if there's a wealthy Brahmana, they would start slowly, that person would become a Vaishya. He would be considered as a Vaishya, not really a Brahmana, because he's only interested in making money, which is not a bad thing. But making money was the job given to the Vaishyas, because they had this responsibility of generating wealth, where Brahmanas were supposed to focus more on knowledge creation. But if they were not doing that, then they were not given that same status that a top intellectual Brahmana would be given, who is actually focusing only on learning and for whom society is contributing. So we must understand these nuances, right? And today's Gurukulas, I think the whole society has changed. So I don't think there will be any big segregation. We are all like, how I can't call I don't know what I am. What is my Varna today? Because I have not conquered my ego. I am not doing all those things that I Brahmana supposed to do. Wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning, do all these things. Before eating myself, before I get my food, I should be feeding the Atithi, then I should be feeding the birds and the animals. So almost none of us are following any of those dharmas of the various varnas, right? So today, I think Gurukulas will be different. It's just if you have the interest and the ability, please join. I'm sure that is the attitude that most Gurukulas are taking today.
Gee, absolutely. So just to add to what Sahana ji just said, if you really want to kind of dwell more into the Varna system, you should really read the book The Beautiful Life by Dharampal.
The beautiful
The
tree.
Beautiful Tree, sorry, The Beautiful Tree by Dharampal. And if you're conversant in Kannada, you should read the original scripture and not the abridged version. And you really will kind of get a better holistic view on how it was meant to be and how it was diluted over the years to become what it did at some point. I have Srinivas Mohodaya here who says most people are skeptical that the Gurukulam system is out of place or out of time. It's outdated in the modern world. How do we craft convincing messages to that the Gurukulam system can actually work? It will take time, but we need to have a set of examples so that the argument is provable. Srinivas Mohodaya, this is a battle that I think Agastya fights every single day. And we have sustained this since 2019, and I'm sure we will continue to forge ahead, and we're getting stronger. So I think over to Sahana Bagini. I just had to add this from my side, Sahana ji. So over to
Actually,
you.
I'm finding Gurukulas absolutely not out of place, but actually even more needed the way that I'm seeing it. The Gurukulas that I have visited, I am finding that the students are being made to follow a discipline and they are doing more in the day than a student in a mainstream school. So what I'm finding in most of these Gurukulas is that they wake up early in the morning. So from 4 a.m. and then they've done all this Gaur Seva and other things. They've been outdoors. They've done a lot of things which is good for their health and their mind, and then they study the shastric subjects until lunchtime. That's what I saw in many of the gurukulas. And then post lunch they are studying modern subjects like science and math and various other subjects. So in no way am I finding them lacking, actually. So when because these people are not wasting time surfing the net or having mindless parties and things like that, so they are dividing their day to study shastric subjects for half the day and modern, so-called modern subjects in the remaining part of the day. Physics, chemistry, everything. Then they're playing games like chess and all that. I don't understand how they are, lesser. How are they backward compared to the mainstream students? In fact, mainstream students, when I talk to them, I get different types of students. But when I talk to Gurukula students, I see that they are very sharp and they're very focused and they speak when it's needed and they speak well because they're also learning languages so well, and their minds are not scattered. In one Gurukula, I was amazed by the kind of questions I got from them. They were questioning me on America. Why is America doing these things? And why is America not adopting this and that? And I was like, what? I thought I didn't expect those questions from the Gurukula students, but because these were higher for grade 11, grade 12 students, they knew what is going on in the world, but at the same time, they were rooted in Dharma. So this is the vision I have for all the Gurukulas in India, that they are going to be good in both. And they actually spend more time, so they are studying hours or more, and yet they're perfectly all right. The mind has huge capacity. If you take care of the mind and body, we have huge capacity to learn many languages, to read a lot. So that is what will happen when Gurukula becomes the norm. That's what I would like to believe. I think in no way are they outside society, or they have any liability. Not at all. Everybody should get a Gurukula education so that they get more out of life itself. That's what I think.
The next question is, how would you propagate this ideology to reach every Indian and to get the best that we deserve as we are born and we're living presently in this ecosystem?
Well, the propagation is what I'm trying to do. So this is, I wrote books, I'm writing more, I'm speaking out, and of course, these Gurukulas will become the examples. Once we get a good number of case studies, shining examples of Gurukulas, that's when more people will want to send their children to Gurukulas. It's happening because I'm getting a lot of emails from parents who say that after they read my book, they don't want to send their children to a normal mainstream school, which gives them stress, which makes them just competitive, and they're only thinking about marks, right? And they're saying we want to send our child to a Gurukula. Can you recommend a Gurukula? And that's how, in fact, their questions led me to travel to all these Gurukulas in India. So in Gujarat, I've been to Gujarat, Karnataka, Uttar Pradesh. I'm going to these Gurukulas to see which are the models that I like, and which should become more popular. Now, the Veda Pathshalas are also there. The Veda Pathshalas are in teaching only the Vedas, but also some basic subjects. So I've seen their curriculum also. It's excellent. New curriculums that are being made now, whereby the Veda Pathshala students are also studying the modern subjects, right? And they're learning skills. So in Vidya Kshetra, I was amazed by how many skills the students are learning, so that they can become independent. So there can be, after finishing the education, one student who loves painting can become an accomplished painter, selling paintings for millions of rupees. Why not? So learning all these skills will actually help them to have vocations which will make money for them. And that's good, because everybody shouldn't be getting into a government job or a private sector, becoming an employee to help somebody else make a lot of money. Why not you yourself become an entrepreneur? So the Gurukulas could be places where entrepreneurs are born. So we just need sufficient number of case studies, that once we have good number of them, then you will find that Gurukulas are scaling up, right? Already I'm seeing that Gurukulas are not able to absorb all the students who want to get in. They're having to reject a number of students because they don't have the capacity yet. So I think Gurukulas are going to multiply in the years to come.
So Srinivas Mahodaya, I think, continues to add how important it is to learn Sanskritam, and he's asking how many people here really are proficient in the language. So Srinivas Mahodaya, I'd just like to add here, Agastya is a Sanskritam immersion Gurukulam, where all our subjects that are taught to the children are in Sanskritam. So we've got Sanskritam, Kanthastikaranam, that's memorization that Sahana ji just spoke about, something that's very important and integral. We've got Itihasa Bhugola, Ganitam, Vijnanam, all covered in Sanskritam, with a perfect balance between the modern education system as well as our Bharatiya Prachin Padhati that has been going on for generations. So that is where we are striving to strike a balance for our children. If you want to know more, very, very happy to take you through that as well.
So I'm also learning Sanskrit now. In fact, I'm going to a class every week. Vidyasvam in Bangalore I've joined their course. Excellent. Because the 4,000 rules of Panini have now been condensed by this guru who is teaching in a different way. And I'm finding that very interesting. Of course, I have to do a lot of homework. I have to catch up with my assignments. But Sanskrit is something that everybody should learn. And if Agastya Gurukulam is helping them to learn at a very young age, so that it's not a burden at all, right? Now because we got English educated, we are learning Sanskrit as a language rather than as something which is within us, right? So Sanskrit learning is going to multiply as people realize the benefits of it. I'm sure Agastya Gurukulam will demonstrate the benefit of that, and then we'll see those brilliant students with that aura around them because they know Sanskrit and they have unlocked these secrets of knowledge, and after which all other knowledge becomes so much easier. I can't believe anything can be a hard subject for somebody who knows Sanskrit.
So there is Pradeep Ramesh Patilji who says, how do we convince ourselves and our families to think beyond typical job-seeking education systems? People are extremely worried about very expensive education and unemployment. Somehow the Gurukulam education is still looked down upon in society, and how kind of can we create a case for it, and kind of to make ourselves more financially secure for the future.
No, I think Gurukula education is only looked down upon if you have not really visited Gurukulas and seen what is happening in Gurukulas. If you have only seen schools, which have these glitzy signboards and, which is with all their marketing, you will be thinking that, okay, this is the way it should be. If you haven't really explored and you haven't seen the problems being caused by modern education, right? And there is no guarantee of job or anything with modern education, by the way. It's not like you got this engineering degree and you're always going to be employed, getting lots of money. I'm seeing so many people without jobs with their engineering degree, right? Here in America, also, a lot of them, they come, they get their advanced degrees, and then they are jobless. Of course, here is also the visa restrictions and things like that. But the thing is that this kind of education is also not making them think in different ways to be how to be an entrepreneur and how to be creative. That also is happening. So I feel that to convince people about a Gurukula education, I think they need to see these Gurukulas and see what they are learning. And remember, these are early days that people, after everything was destroyed, and now the Gurukula education is making a comeback. So if you join now, then you'll be the leaders because you joined early, right? The early adopters, you could say. Uh, if I was a young mother today, 100% I would put my daughter in a Gurukula, not in any of these stupid schools where they're just going to be memorizing things which are not going to be useful to them, or even the things that they learn, so-called problem-solving techniques, actually don't solve any problem because it is from the same mindset that created the problem, right? So I would definitely put my child in a Gurukula. Only thing is how to get into a good Gurukula. The good Gurukulas are now swamped, the ones that I've seen, because they can't, because they're on small scale, they can't have so many students. So we need to scale them up. We need to have many, many like Gurukulas. For example, Vidya Kshetra in Bangalore, which are considered to be one of the finest Gurukulas, they need to build hundreds of Gurukulas all over India. And for that, they need good acharyas. That is the problem, actually, more than that. What is hindering the Gurukula development right now is getting good acharyas. And so there's an Acharya Nirman program also that's going on that Muni Dhimanji is head of leading that effort, whereby we have enough number of Sanskrit enabled acharyas who can teach all these different subjects. Once that is all in place, then Gurukula education will take off. That is my belief.
So I think adding to what Sahana ji said, Agastya Gurukulam has also kind of started a teacher training course in IKS, which is certified by the Central Sanskrit University. We've been affiliated with CSU. Our first batch should be starting off in the month of September. So if anyone is keen to join us in this journey, please do reach out to us as well. And the entire, I think, initiative of starting the teacher training was something very similar to what Sahana ji said, is to build our own ecosystem, where we could grow and, we could kind of be supported by the right kind of people who align with our vision and who can kind of teach our designed curriculum the way we desire. So definitely, if there's anyone interested, let us know. There is somebody who, Rahul ji is asking, have you covered these Gurukulams in your book?
No, I haven't because the journey to visit these Gurukulas started after I wrote my book. So the book talks about what ancient education was like, the benefits of that kind of education, and brahmacharya, memory training. It goes into details of what it was like. And then and then how it was destroyed, because people won't believe that it was so good because they think, where is it now? And so they need to be told how it was destroyed step by step. Then I come to what we can do to get it back. So I've given some measures, what we need to do. But the actual living examples, I came to know after I finished writing the book. So I think the next book is going to be about all these amazing gurukulas that I have visited, and I'm still visiting. I'm getting invitations. I haven't managed to visit all of them. And many of them are just like schools which give the Bharatiya Drishti. Many of these new schools which I'm being invited to, they may not be regular gurukulas where the students are living with the guru, right? They are day gurukulas. And then, but the way they teach the subjects is to give the Bharatiya Drishti along with teaching those subjects. And I think that is also a good model to adopt. So if you're not able to send your child to a Gurukula, then look at these kind of schools as well. Only problem I have is with certain educational systems where they do not give credit to Sanatana Dharma. So you have those models as well. I think there are Waldorf schools and all those J. Krishnamurti schools and all that, which are like, they are teaching concepts from Sanatana Dharma and all that holistic approach, but they don't want to name Sanatana Dharma. And I have a problem with those institutions.
No, no, definitely. I think that would be a very interesting book to review and read, Sahana ji. There is Varna ji who's saying that we need to think how to make Gurukulams more affordable to everyone in terms of fees. I see alternate schools or Gurukulams are very expensive. There are a lot of parents interested but cannot afford the fees. So Varna ji, here I would just like to add, I think before Sahana ji can kind of give you her views, is that I think all Gurukulams, we're trying to be sustainable. And the fees that we charge currently are more towards making ourselves sustainable. And I'm sure once we're very happy to waive off the fees as far as we can. Like our founder Shri Balaji Mohdaya very firmly tells us on several occasions when we interact that Bhagini, to charge for education, we are actually collecting papas. And that is something which we definitely don't want to do. Our endeavor is just to kind of reach a point where we can survive. And then from going forward from there on, you're going to see a very different Gurukulam system. So you can add on to this, Sahana ji.
Sorry, I started reading the question, so I got diverted. What
No,
was
no,
the
no. That's
question?
that the Gurukulam education or any alternate means is slightly more expensive, and
Expensive.
can we
Okay.
make it more affordable?
Okay, okay. No, the thing is that since I'm seeing different models of Gurukula education, so in Vidya Kshetra, I saw that parents are being asked, there's no fixed fee rate there. You can pay anything you can. And so each parent is actually giving more than what is required for their child. And so in that way, some other child who is not able to pay will be covered by this parent's dana. So they are using the dana model. So there are some Gurukulas that take the Dana model. They're not charging fees to the students, because if the student is good, the Guru will take the student, but then the society supporting has to support the Gurukula. That is happening in some of the places. In Telangana, I saw that, and Vidya Kshetra is doing the same. There are others who are charging fees, which is also fine. I mean, the fees would be a clear-cut way of knowing how much it costs, and so you're charging this much for from per student, because as you said, you have to sustain yourself. This is like a little child, it has to be nurtured and nourished until it becomes an adult, right? So at that time, you can't starve it. So parents, I think parents should open their wallets and give as much as they can at this stage, because consider the alternative, mainstream education, which is just going to make a mess out of your child's brain. Just studying for competitive exams, getting sick, and being demotivated from time to time and upset, all those things. I would say that I would do anything. And parents have to do a lot of seva also in these gurukulas that I see. The ones that are doing well are the ones where parents are closely connected and they're offering to the volunteering, doing whatever help they can render to the gurukula. That's very important. Those are doing better than the places where the parents think that this is just a service being rendered. School is a service, just like water is a service being given by the government, right? It's not a privilege that you are having this. So in those places where parents are hands off, those gurukulas are struggling more. That's what I saw. Expensive, I mean, I really don't think Gurukulas, what they're charging today, are expensive given the amount of effort that they're putting in, right? But yeah, but we still have to look at the models because we want to make it popular. So we have to get more people to contribute to these efforts. The rich people of this world who are having all this money, I mean, what are they keeping that wealth for? I always tell them to donate to Gurukulas so that they can give free education to more deserving students. So I'm sure that will happen over a period of time when when they see the benefits. We will have these philanthropists who are donating. It's happening in a small way, but needs
Yeah.
to go up.
There's Varnaji again, who says that we should think about integrating Sanatan Dharma into the CBSE curriculum without having religion-specific mention.
Oh, I'm sure that is already there. I mean, in fact, as I told you, there are many models of education where Sanatana will definitely not be mentioned. Those things will be taken. I am actually making a call for Sanatana to be mentioned. Why not? I mean, our gurus, you are not giving credit to those gurus. You are actually insulting them if you don't mention the source. That is the paddhati. You know, when you talk about the knowledge that you have to cite the gurus who came before you and who worked on this. So that should be there. That paddhati, that citation paddhati is ours. It's not some new thing that came from the West. And I'm seeing a comment from Bhogya online. This is Malati ji, who's doing amazing work in Germany. She herself should have her own. You should invite her sometime to speak. Yeah. So being in a foreign country and doing all this work to keep our knowledge systems alive, it's very, very important. Uh, I don't know the names of Gurukulas in Chennai, but I'll be visiting Tamil Nadu at some point, and that's when I'll be personally seeing those Gurukulas and talking about them. So right now it's only hearsay for me, right? So I've only been to some in Gujarat, Uttar Pradesh, and Karnataka, and Madhya Pradesh. And I'm documenting it, and hopefully they'll have enough numbers to write a book on the new Gurukulas of today.
I think with that, Sahanaji, I think the questions, I hope I haven't missed out any. Parents, you're free to raise your hands in case I may have missed out. There is Malati ji who wishes to say something. Sheetal Bhagini, can we unmute? Malati ji?
Yes, well.
Yeah, thank you so much. Namaskarams to Agastya Gurukulam and hello, Sahana. Lovely to see you here.
Namaste.
Thanks for the kind words that you mentioned about Bhogya also. Yeah, so it was a lovely presentation. Have taken some notes and would be happy to get associated with Agastya Gurukulam sometime.
Oh, completely look forward to it, Malati Bhagini. It'll be our
Thank you.
privilege.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Any other participant who would like to?
I'm seeing this comment by Richa ji, who is saying that she's trying to learn Sanskrit from Pushpa ji. Oh,
Pushpa
Pushpa ji
Dikshit
is
Mataji.
ultimate. You're learning from her. I envy you. Yes. Once you begin learning Sanskrit, there is no looking back, and Shastras reveal themselves to us. We don't need any external convincing. Excellent. Yes, that's true. Acharya training program, Munit Dhimanji of Vidyakshetra is leading it. Punarutthan is the institute in Ahmedabad, Karnavati, which is in charge of this Acharya Nirman program, their Acharya Nirman program. Agastya must be having its own. So
Yeah.
I think most Gurukulas are looking at how to have more Acharyas for the future. And
Correct.
today's students must become tomorrow's Acharyas. That's also another thing, because that's how it used to be in ancient times, right? Teaching is a noble profession, and students would want to get into this very noble profession from which they gained. It's a guru runa. You have a debt. If you have learned so much from the guru, you have to pass it on to the next generation. So I hope the teaching, the schooling itself is an Acharya Nirman program that's happening right now.
Bhagini, in case you want the Acharya training program that we've got, teacher training and IKS, you can write to us at info@agastyagurukulam.org. We've got Nitya ji, Nitya Sundaram ji, who heads this vertical, and I'm sure she'd be very, very happy to speak to you as well.
Sure, sure. Yes, this is going to be a lifelong connection, so we are going to be in touch.
Absolutely, absolutely. Participants, anybody else would
I think we have
I
answered all
think
the questions.
I think pretty much, Sahana ji.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Bahu dhanyavad from the entire Agastya Gurukulam Parivar and from all the participants that have been here with us today. It's been an absolutely kind of thought-provoking journey, and I wish it kind of has hit the right chord with the audience. Our only kind of wish is that you align yourselves and your children in promoting Sanskritam, in understanding our Bharatiya Padati. It could be with Agastya, it could be with any other institution. We are all here to, kind of promote the cause and make our children the torch bearers for IKS and for the prosperity of India going forward. So on that note, I would bid farewell to all the participants. Bahut dhanyavad, Sahana ji. Namo Namaha.
Namo Namaha.
Shubharatri to all my fellows who are in India, and Shubha Dinam to our participants who joined us from another time zone. Bahut
Dhanyavad,
dhanyavad.
dhanyavad.
And
Thank you so much for
Punarmilamaha. Ram Ram.
Punarmilamaha. Thank you.
धन्यवादः.
Dhanyavad.
Thank you.